Welcome to another deep dive today. We're going to be looking at something pretty interesting, pretty cool, I think. We're going to be focusing on Runway Gen 3
Oh, yeah?
and specifically prompts, but not just any prompts, prompts from the community. We're going to be looking at the Runway Discord server, see what people are talking about, what they're excited about, the kind of prompts that they're coming up with, and we'll be touching on stuff like camera movements, color grading, even some tips and tricks for Act 1. Sound good?
Yeah, let's jump in.
Okay, so let's start with camera movements. Because a simple change of camera angle
Right.
can just completely change the mood of a scene, right?
Totally. Yeah. Like if you think about it, classic films, just changing where the camera's pointing can completely change the emotion.
And the community is really picking up on that with Runway Gen 3. Like, there's this prompt for a rolling effect. So the camera's literally rolling on its axis.
Wow.
So you could use that to show a character's disorientation maybe after a fall, or just in a chaotic action sequence.
Yeah. Makes you feel like you're right there with
And it pulls you right in.
Yeah.
And then you have something like the arc shot, which is more of a classic camera movement. The camera's going around the subject. So imagine like a character delivering this powerful monologue,
Right.
and the camera slowly circles them.
Ooh, yeah.
Like the tension just builds.
Classic. Yeah, you see that in movies all the time.
Right. And so it's cool to see that that is possible with Runway Gen 3.
Yeah.
And then there are prompts for like more practical things like slider, like that smooth horizontal camera
Yeah,
movement.
that sense. Yeah.
And then even like drone or
Mm.
aerial shots.
Oh, wow.
So for like epic landscapes, cityscapes, like one user gave the example drone shot of Market Square.
That's very specific.
And I can totally picture it. And then for like those moments when you want to create that sense of unease or tension, there's the Dutch angle, which is where the camera is tilted
right.
to
Yeah.
give the scene that off-kilter look.
Oh, that makes it feel like something bad's about to happen.
Yeah. So like imagine a prompt like Dutch angle tilt shot of a man running down a corridor.
Ooh, that's
It
creepy.
immediately just throws you off.
Ah.
Now, what kind of stories would you tell using these camera techniques in Runway? What do you think?
Oh man, so many. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
It's really cool to see what people are coming up with.
It's amazing, yeah.
And speaking of visual storytelling, let's move on to another area that's exploding with creativity. Color grading.
Yes,
Yeah.
color grading can make or break a scene.
Absolutely.
Setting the mood, the tone.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And one technique that we've seen pop up is this thing called color splash.
Color splash, yeah.
So essentially, you're introducing these pops of color into a black and white image.
Oh, that's really cool. So you're bringing attention to one specific thing.
Exactly. One user suggested the prompt, a black and white scene where only red roses are in color.
Oh, wow. That's
Imagine
really
how those
cool.
roses would just pop.
Yeah, and red roses have so much symbolism already.
They do. Another user suggested a black and white field with a colorful sunset and blue skies. Color splash.
Sort of more peaceful, yeah.
It paints a different picture, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. More hopeful.
Now think about all the possibilities with this color splash. You could have a city scene where only the taxi cabs are in color.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Or like a somber scene where a single blue bird represents hope.
It's like color becomes a character in itself.
It does. It does. Now let's move on to another crucial part of visual storytelling, lighting. Lighting is so essential. It sets the mood, it creates depth,
It does, yeah.
and it can even influence how we perceive the characters.
For
right?
sure. Like if a character's face is half in shadow, you think, what are they hiding?
Exactly. And the community's diving deep into different lighting techniques with Runway. Two that really stood out were Rembrandt lighting and split lighting.
Okay, I've heard of those. But
Yeah.
remind me.
Yeah, so with Rembrandt lighting, you create the small triangle of light on the cheek. It adds depth, especially for portraits. Like one description was, the face of a man is partially shadowed with a small, distinct triangle of light highlighting his cheekbones, reminiscent of a Rembrandt painting.
Ah, okay, so it makes you think about all those classical paintings.
Exactly. And then there's split lighting, where the subject's face is like divided in half, right down the middle,
Yeah.
with light and shadow.
Yeah, I've seen that in movies.
Yeah. And it's often used to symbolize like duality or internal conflict. Like one example was half of a character's face is bathed in light while the other half recedes into shadow, creating a stark contrast that speaks to the complexity of their persona.
Ooh, I like that. It's like the light side and the dark side.
It is. It is. Now let's shift gears a bit and look at some tips coming from the Act 1 Tips and Share channel. This is great because it's coming straight from people who are actually using the tool.
Yeah, straight from the source.
Right. One that caught my eye was about creating driving scenes without a green screen.
Oh, that's cool. Green screens can be a pain to set up.
They can be.
Mm.
And this user said you can just use a simple webcam or iPhone camera with good key lighting
Oh, wow, okay.
and a static background. Apparently, if there's any movement in the background, Act 1 rejects it.
Really? Huh. Good to know.
It's all about being resourceful,
It is, and that's
Yeah.
what I love about this community. They're always finding ways to make things work.
They are. Now, it's not all smooth sailing, right? There are still some limitations with Runway Gen 3. And there was a discussion in the Gen 3 Prompt Share channel about this, about animating characters running to a door.
Oh, right, because AI still struggles with those kinds of actions, right?
It does. And one user was saying they couldn't get the animation to loop properly. Like the characters would stop at the door instead of running continuously.
Makes sense. That's a tricky thing to animate.
It is. But then another user suggested this cool workaround, a split screen approach. So break down the action into smaller segments, film them separately, and then edit them together.
Oh, that's clever. It's like hacking the AI.
It is. It's a great reminder that we're still early on in all this. And user feedback is so important.
Totally. We're all figuring this out together.
Right. And speaking of feedback, we also need to acknowledge those who are feeling a bit frustrated with Runway Gen 3. We came across a pretty honest discussion in the V2V Prompt Share channel.
Oh, what were they saying?
Well, one user was pretty disappointed with the Gen 3 alpha results, said even after following all the settings, the output just wasn't what they expected, especially for the cost.
Yeah, I can understand that. There's always hype with new technology, and sometimes it doesn't live up to it right away.
Right, and they specifically mentioned having trouble achieving certain effects, like adding magical elements or ethereal visuals.
Interesting.
They felt limited in how much they could tweak and refine the outputs. Like it was more of a guessing game than a precise creative tool.
It is early days, though.
It is. So it's good to keep in mind that while there's a lot of excitement around Gen 3, there's still work to be done.
Totally. And it's great that the community is vocal about what's working and what's not.
Absolutely. That feedback is essential for the developers.
Yeah, for sure. It's fascinating to see how people are using color in their prompts.
Oh yeah, it's not just about making things look pretty. It's like they're really thinking about how color can tell a story.
Right, using it to set the mood or evoke specific emotions.
Exactly. And one of the channels on Discord that we found was all about textures and mediums. Like they're trying to recreate different artistic styles.
Oh, that sounds cool, like making it look like a painting or a certain type of film stock.
Yeah. And the prompts they're coming up with are so specific. Like one user mentioned Technicolor.
Oh, wow. So like those classic Hollywood films.
Yes. And they even gave an example prompt, still image shot using Technicolor style.
That would be amazing to see. Like a modern scene, but with that vintage look.
Right. And another user mentioned CinemaScope.
Oh, I love that.
He said still image shot in CinemaScope style.
Oh, so like those epic widescreen movies with those grand landscapes.
Exactly. It's like they're bringing the history of film and art into the world of AI.
It's mind-blowing to think about all the possibilities. Like, what if you could create a scene that looks like it was directed by Hitchcock or something?
Right. And they're getting really specific with their prompts. We found a channel called Lens Selections.
Oh, wow. Lens selections, so they're specifying the type of lens to use.
Yeah, like one user was playing around with bokeh effects. They shared the prompt, evening shot with soft, round light circles from distant lamps. Prompt, soft bokeh.
So like those blurry lights in the background.
Yeah, that dreamy kind of look. And then there was a user who was experimenting with fisheye lens effects. They said, a skateboarder's full view, capturing the park and the sky. Prompt, fisheye effect.
Oh, I can picture that. It'd make the scene feel really dynamic and energetic.
Exactly. And it just shows how even something as technical as lens choice can be used creatively in Runway Gen 3.
It's amazing, yeah. And speaking of creative uses of technology, how about we dive into the world of lighting?
Yes, lighting. It's such a crucial element of storytelling.
It is, and I'm curious to see how the community is using it in their prompts.
Well, they're going beyond just basic illumination. They're really thinking about how to use light to create specific moods and effects. One technique they're using is called selective color.
Selective color, what's that?
So it's where you isolate a single color in the scene while everything else is in grayscale.
Oh, okay, so you're really drawing attention to that one color.
Exactly. And we saw some great examples of this on Discord. Like one user suggested the prompt, a bustling city street where only the traffic lights are in color.
Wow, I can see that. Like a sea of gray with those bright red, yellow, and green lights standing out.
Right. And then another user suggested a totally different mood with the prompt, a dark forest where only a single blue butterfly is in color.
Oh, that's beautiful. Like a symbol of hope amidst the darkness.
It really is. And it just shows how powerful this technique can be. But let's talk about a technique that's a bit more dramatic. Chiaroscuro. Have you ever heard of that?
Chiaroscuro. Yeah, I think so. Isn't that lighting technique where you have extreme contrast between light and shadow?
Exactly. It's often used to create a sense of mystery and intrigue, like in film noir.
Oh, yeah, those classic black and white films with the shadowy figures and the femme fatales.
Exactly. And one user on Discord suggested the scene, a dimly lit alleyway where the only light source is a single street lamp, casting long shadows on the figures walking by.
Oh, I can practically feel the suspense building, like something's about to happen.
Right. It's amazing how lighting can create that kind of atmosphere. But now the question is, how are people actually achieving these lighting effects in Runway Gen 3?
Yeah, good question. Like, do they have special tricks up their sleeves?
Well, in the Gen 3 prompt share channel, there was a discussion about using image prompts to guide the AI.
Oh, interesting. So they're feeding the AI a reference image to show it the kind of lighting they want.
Exactly. Like one user said, I used an image of a film noir scene as a prompt, and the AI was able to generate a really convincing chiaroscuro effect.
That's so cool. It's like giving the AI a visual example to follow.
Right. It seems like a really effective way to get specific results. And speaking of helpful tips, we found some gems in the Act 1 Tips and Share channel.
Oh, yeah. That channel is a goldmine of practical advice.
It really is. One tip that caught my attention was about using a depth map to control the focus and blur in a scene.
Depth maps. Yeah, I've heard of those. They can make a scene look really cinematic, right?
Like you can have the background softly blurred while the subject is in sharp focus, just like in the movies. And what's great is that this user actually provided step-by-step instructions on how to create a depth map using Photoshop.
That's awesome. It's so generous of them to share their knowledge like that.
It is. It really shows the spirit of this community. They're not just using the tools, they're helping each other learn and grow.
It's a beautiful thing to see. But of course, it's important to acknowledge that there are still some challenges and limitations with Runway Gen 3.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that kept coming up in the Discord discussions was the issue of control.
Control? In what sense?
Well, some users felt like they weren't always in complete control of the AI's output. Like they had a vision in mind, but they weren't always sure how to guide the AI toward that vision.
That makes sense. It's still early days for AI, and we're all still figuring out how to communicate effectively with these tools.
Right. And some people were frustrated when the AI generated something that wasn't exactly what they had in mind.
Yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating. But it's also part of the learning process, both for the users and for the AI itself.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot between artistic intention and the AI's creative input.
And that's where the community comes in, right? By sharing their experiences, their successes, and their challenges, they're helping to shape the future of AI-generated video.
Absolutely. They're the pioneers, the explorers, the ones who are pushing the boundaries and showing us what's possible.
And what's so exciting is that we're only just scratching the surface. I can't wait to see what they come up with next.
Me too. And in our next segment, we'll be exploring how the community is using Runway to create truly experimental and mind-bending art.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. I'm ready to dive in.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Runway Gen 3. We've been exploring all these incredible prompts from the community. And in this last part, we want to take a look at how they're pushing the boundaries even further, getting into that realm of experimental art.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this. Like, how far can they really take these tools?
Right. Well, one discussion that caught our eye was in the Gen 3 Prompt Share channel. And they were talking about creating visual poetry with Runway.
Visual poetry. Interesting.
Yeah, like merging the power of language with visuals.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Like a painting that evokes a feeling or an idea.
Exactly. And the prompts they were sharing were so creative. Like one user wrote, a swirling vortex of emotions, painted in hues of joy and sorrow.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. Like you can almost feel the emotions swirling around.
Right. And then another one was the weight of time, visualized as a crumbling cityscape.
Oh, that's a good one. It's like time is slowly eroding everything around us.
It's incredible how these prompts are challenging the AI to think abstractly.
Yeah, it's not just about creating realistic images anymore. It's about expressing complex ideas and emotions.
And it seems like the AI is up for the challenge. We're seeing some truly mind-bending art coming out of this. And it's not just limited to visual poetry either. The community is drawing inspiration from all sorts of places like dreams, mythology, science.
That's amazing. It's like they're tapping into a whole new source of creative energy.
It is. And I think it's safe to say that we're only just scratching the surface of what's possible. As the technology gets better, we can expect even more innovative and groundbreaking art to emerge.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this all goes. It feels like we're witnessing a new era of art, one that's being shaped by both humans and AI.
And what's so inspiring is how open and collaborative this community is. They're sharing their discoveries and knowledge and really pushing each other to create amazing things.
Yeah, it's a really special group of people.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Runway Gen 3 prompts, we just want to say that we're blown away by the creativity and innovation that's coming from this community.
It's truly inspiring.
If you're listening to this and you're feeling even a little bit curious, we encourage you to dive in and see what you can create.
Yeah, join the community, experiment, and don't be afraid to push those boundaries.
Who knows, you might just create the next masterpiece of AI-generated art. Thanks for joining us on this journey. It's been an absolute pleasure to explore the world of Runway Gen 3 with you. Until next time, keep creating.